So the whispers were true after all. The CCTV exists. And what's on it is said to be so explosive that even Starmer's wife Victoria couldn't hold it together. Reports claim she stormed out in tears, phoned divorce lawyers, and hasn't been seen in public since. Ask yourself this. If it's all nonsense, if there's nothing to hide, then why are Labour's lawyers working overtime to shut everybody up? The whole thing kicked off when Jim Davidson, yes, that Jim Davidson dropped his bombshell set in Westminster. A stand-up routine that apparently wasn't so funny for Starmer's inner circle. He spoke about footage taken inside Lord Ali's luxury penthouse, the $18 million pad that somehow became a second home for the Labour leader. Davidson says, what's on those tapes would make the British public physically sick. A strong choice of words, don't you think? Now here's the bit that gets under people's skin. Victoria Starmer, a woman who has always kept a very low profile, was allegedly shown clips of this CCTV at a charity event. Minutes later, she was seen leaving in floods of tears, no Starmer in sight, no explanations given. Within hours, she'd contacted divorce lawyers. So either this is the most elaborate hoax in Westminster history, or something really dark is lurking behind those penthouse doors. And yet Channel 4, BBC, Sky not a peep. Isn't that strange? They covered wallpaper scandals, Partygate ministers' speeding fines, but an alleged prime ministerial marriage blow-up triggered by hidden cameras in an oligarch's flat? Silence. Almost like they've all agreed this one's off limits. But why? What is so dangerous about letting the public hear the full story? Think about the timeline. Starmer said he stayed in the penthouse to help his son revise for GCSEs. Lovely, except they remained there for 7 weeks, long after the exams ended. So what was the real reason for staying so long in a $450 a night luxury suite that just happened to belong to Labour's wealthiest donor, a quiet study environment? Or something the rest of us aren't supposed to know about? Let's not forget the clothes. £19,000 worth of designer gear handed to Starmer himself, another £5,000 for his wife. Gifts from Lord Ali registered late, and only after the media started sniffing around. And when questioned? Oh, they were just to look presentable. Presentable? On a 6-figure salary with his wife also earning plenty, he couldn't afford a decent suit without a billionaire sponsor? Or is this less about fashion and more about control? Now, sources in Westminster are saying the footage, if it ever leaks, could completely end Starmer's leadership. MPs are already whispering about replacing him, branding him a walking liability. Think about that. Labour sitting on a chance to hold government, quietly discussing if their man is already finished. And why? Because of what some cameras saw in an apartment he swore was just a place for family revision sessions. Revision sessions at 2 a.m., with unnamed visitors slipping in through a side door? Really? And here's the kicker. Davidson himself says after seeing the video, he felt sick. Not concerned, not upset. Sick. This isn't a man who's easily shocked. So what exactly did he see? And why would Victoria leave her husband of decades if it was just innocent political meetings and polite conversations? The story doesn't add up. And the tighter Starmer's team tries to shut it down, the more obvious it becomes that something is being hidden. The bigger question is this. If a scandal this explosive is already rattling around Westminster circles, how long before someone ignores the cease and desist letters and lets the British public see what's really on that CCTV? Because let's be honest, once something like this exists, it always leaks. That's the golden rule of Westminster. The more they scramble to bury a story, the bigger it becomes. And Starmer's scramble has been almost comical. Lawyers firing off threats, tech companies under pressure to delete posts, journalists warned off with friendly advice from people who don't usually hand out friendly advice. But still the whispers grow. If the story really is baseless, if the CCTV really is harmless, then why the nuclear reaction? Why not shrug, laugh it off, and move on? Unless, of course, the footage shows something that cannot be laughed away. Insiders claim that several journalists have already been shown blurred stills enough to give them the picture without handing over the tape itself. One described unexpected late-night movements in and out of the penthouse. Another mentioned compromising interactions that made even hardened Westminster veterans uncomfortable. Nothing confirmed, of course, it's all whispers, half statements, and nods over drinks. But isn't that how every great scandal starts? Just enough smoke to make everyone wonder where the fire is. And here's the twist. It's not just political enemies fanning the flames. Even Labour MPs are starting to ask behind closed doors if their leader is a liability. When your own side quietly prepares the knives, you know the damage is deep. And what about Victoria? Her silence is louder than any speech Starmer could make. This is a woman who rarely appears in public anyway, suddenly vanishing altogether. The official line is that she's supporting her family privately, but according to multiple sources, she walked out the night she saw the clips and has not returned to the marital home since. Divorce lawyers, separation rumors, tears at a charity gala, all swirling around while the BBC pretends nothing happened. Tell me this. If it were the Tories, if it were Boris or Sunak caught up in something like this, do you think it would be brushed under the carpet so neatly? Or would it lead every bulletin, every front page, every outraged column? And then there's Lord Ollie himself, the money man, the clothes donor, the penthouse owner, the so-called sugar daddy that the internet can't stop mocking. Every thread leads back to him. He's bankrolling the lifestyle, providing the stage, hosting the meetings, and yet somehow we're expected to believe it's all just generosity, just one rich man being kind to a politician and his wife. Really? When has politics ever worked like that? There's no such thing as a free penthouse. No such thing as £19,000 worth of free suits. No such thing as weeks of accommodation, late-night visitors, and secrecy without strings attached. So what does Ali get in return? That's the question Westminster is too scared to answer out loud. Meanwhile, the narrative being pushed is laughably thin. It was all for the exams. It was just gifts. Nothing to see here. But every time another excuse drops, another contradiction pops up. The exam period doesn't match the stay. The gifts weren't declared properly until after questions were raised. The footage supposedly irrelevant, yet aggressively hidden. This isn't damage control, it's panic. And when a politician panics, the truth is usually worse than the rumor. Think of the irony. Starmer built his career attacking corruption, calling for integrity, demanding accountability. He rode the high horse when Downing Street was caught partying. And now? He's the one accused of using lawyers to silence critics, of enjoying luxury perks from billionaires, of living a lifestyle completely at odds with his working-class messaging. Hypocrisy doesn't get more blatant than that. And the British public hate double standards more than anything else. Which brings us to the nightmare scenario Labour insiders fear. What if the tape actually surfaces online? Not whispered about, not hinted at, but uploaded for the entire country to see. Imagine the fallout if voters watched with their own eyes what Victoria allegedly saw. Imagine the questions in Parliament, the headlines, the collapse of trust. How could Starmer survive that? How could Labour go into an election with a leader caught in a scandal that makes Partygate look like a school disco? And maybe that's why they're fighting so hard. Not to protect privacy, not to shield a family from gossip, but to keep a career, and a party's shot at power, from imploding. Yet with every passing day, the rumors get louder, the silence from mainstream outlets gets stranger, and the public grows more suspicious. If this is all smoke and mirrors, why does it feel more like a firestorm building in the shadows? So here's the question no one in Westminster dares to ask on the record. When the truth finally breaks free, and it always does, will Starmer still be standing? Or will we be watching the fastest political collapse in modern British history, all because